Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for my preview and team selector ahead of tomorrow night's game at Stamford Bridge in the Premier League at home to Newcastle United. How quickly things have changed for Chelsea in the complexion of the Premier League. You know, a few weeks ago there was concern over qualifying for the Champions League, but Thomas Tuchel's good work in getting us 3 wins in a row, 4 undefeated in the Premier League as well if you include that Wolves 0-0 draw, and results continuing to fluctuate around the league quite rapidly. Liverpool especially dropping form dramatically this season. Chelsea now can go into tomorrow night, and I think depending on what happens today, of course, there's still some games to go as I'm recording this video. Chelsea can at least leapfrog Liverpool, at least into 4th place, I believe, 2 points ahead of them. Which, if you said that at the start of the season, going into January, I think most people would believe we'd be in a serious title challenge. But that is the nature of this Premier League season. And I can't say I'm utterly shocked by that. I probably would have been saying that a month ago, irrelevant to what we felt about Chelsea at the time. This season has been just incredible in terms of the way teams go through really bad patches, but then really good patches. It's all going to sort of balance out in the end where, you know, whoever is in good form by the time we get to March, April, and May, we'll find out who finishes where they do. And hopefully Chelsea will be in that top 4. I don't think it's unrealistic to say Chelsea should be getting top 4. I think that should be the aim. And I think if we don't, at least from this position, I'd be quite disappointed given the fact that, as I say, we're in a really strong position now. And the good thing is as well, we're facing a lot of teams in and around us in the coming weeks to gain points on them too. So I think that's a positive. Thomas Tuchel did his press conference earlier than usual. It was not only on Thursday, when usually the press conferences are done on Friday, but at 11 a.m. And Tuchel, you know, always on time now. In the past with Lampard, you know, always being late to press conferences, he's on time. It was an early presser, so we got a lot of info ahead of time about this game. Expectedly, Thiago Silva still out. The good thing about Thiago Silva is it's believed that he might be ready for Southampton. Now, if he's not the end of the world, because a couple of days after that game at St Mary's, we're facing Atletico Madrid. So in my opinion, if you say to me he can only play one of those, I want him playing the Atletico Madrid game personally. The first leg, 2 weeks time? So he could be ready for that one. He could be ready for the Saints game as well. We'll have to wait and see. And Kai Havertz as well, unlikely to be involved. Apparently he's back in training. I mean, it's been quite mysterious around Kai Havertz because he wasn't really mentioned pre-Barnsley. Of course, he didn't feature at all against Barnsley. And then it was announced from Tuchel he was injured. Apparently he's back in training now, so hopefully he'll be back involved maybe against Southampton. It's just one of those things for Havertz, a bit like some other players like Ziyech as well, just trying to get them back involved and getting them on the pitch. But, you know, if Chelsea start winning games and Tuchel very much sets on at least some players that he's going to play consistently, it's going to become very difficult for Havertz to get back into this team, especially in the Premier League. So we'll have to wait and see on his fitness. But as I say, top 4, it's all about top 4 now for the rest of the season. And maybe even a little bit more than that. You know, if Chelsea continue this good winning run, we could sort of cement ourselves where maybe Man United are. I think we faced Man United in a couple of games in the Premier League, so another chance to leapfrog them as well. But let's look at Newcastle United. In terms of erratic, in terms of a team that maybe perfectly represents this season, I'd look at Newcastle United. Just look at their last 5 games in the Premier League. Won 2 of them. Had some really good wins recently under Steve Bruce. He's been under a lot of pressure at Newcastle. I have to say, I have a lot of time for Steve Bruce as a manager. I think that Newcastle job is just a bit of a poison chalice at the moment. All of the noise around Mike Ashley constantly. And I have a lot of sympathy for Newcastle fans, their frustration with the lack of sort of ambition at that club, just sort of be a Premier League club just by default, basically. I don't think they're going to go down, even though they are in 17th. I think there are 3 worse teams than them in the league, but there is that sense that this club could be a lot more. But I feel like we've been having that conversation about Newcastle for a very long time. But I think in difficult circumstances, Steve Bruce has done an all right job. I don't think he's done an incredible job with the players at his disposal, but they have got Callum Wilson out now for at least, I think it's 7 or 8 weeks, which is absolutely devastating because some of those brilliant wins recently has come through the goals of Callum Wilson. I mean, Wilson knows what it's like to score in the Premier League. Is their top goal scorer this season, probably their best signing of last summer. It's no surprise to me that, you know, after leaving Bournemouth, who got relegated last season, he was going to come into the Premier League, still score goals. I'm happy he's not available for tomorrow because he's one of those players you do look out for. I think he was unavailable for the first game against Newcastle as well, which really does change, I think, the dynamic of this game, because the way Newcastle beat Everton at Goodison Park, the way they beat Southampton the other week too, there was much more more ambition to their play. Now, it is Chelsea, and we saw the way Steve Bruce set up last time against Chelsea back in, November, when we beat them 2-0 at St James's Park. I don't feel it's going to be that different. Now, they did play over a 4-back system last time. The midfield three of Joe Willock, just on loan from Arsenal. I think that's a really good signing. Scored on his debut, actually, on loan from Arsenal, with Jeff Hendrick, who got sent off, so won't be available for this game. And Jonjo Shelvey, who can be a really dynamic passer when he wants to. And Miguel Almiron, who's well scored. And Callum Wilson is going to be out of this game. And St Maximin, who's probably their most exciting player, I'd say, on the pitch. St Maximin, I remember watching him at the Bridge last season against Chelsea. And despite Newcastle being very defensive that day, he was the most extroverted player on the pitch, really, for Newcastle. You know, his tricks and flicks, his ambition. He really is a player that can make something happen in the final third. So from a Chelsea perspective, defensively, despite not having Callum Wilson, I'm looking at Almiron and I'm looking at St Maximin as the two players Chelsea have to look out for tomorrow if we want to keep a clean sheet. But as I fully expect, they're going to go to a back five. I think Steve Bruce is going to sit very deep, and I don't think you can blame him at this situation when you don't have your top goal scorer. I don't think he's going to press that high up the pitch. I think with Chelsea's maybe ambition to create more chances, there has been this belief that Chelsea will eventually put a load of goals past a team, but I don't think we've been creating bundles of opportunities. I look at that Sheffield United game last weekend. I look at the Barnsley game. I know a very different team to the one that faced Sheffield United. Chelsea need to be creating those opportunities as well. I feel that it's just about I think there are certain moments already under Tuchel where I can see things coming together. It was a bit like the Tottenham game, for instance, where I think you could see movements and patterns of play coming together. It's just about these players linking together and maybe having that chemistry. And I think the more they play together under Tuchel, I feel hopefully that link will come. But it's about being more clinical in games. That has been the issue for a very long time at Chelsea now. I think for quite a few years, it's not just a Thomas Tuchel issue or even, Lampard or a Sarri issue. You could go back further than that, to be honest, of Chelsea really putting away teams, and the quality is there to do it. And you do feel like if Chelsea were to have a very convincing win with the momentum we've had built over recent weeks, it could really boost us up in terms of where we see the rest of the season. Let me give you my predicted 11. I don't think it's going to be radically different to the one that started against Sheffield United. I'm still going to go for this 3-4-2-1, and there could be an argument, you're coming up against Steve Bruce, you're coming up against a side that is probably going to play a back five, is probably going to sit very, very deep. Why do you need that extra defender? I just think it's working for him in the Premier League, and many players who didn't start against Barnsley will come back into the team, I think, naturally here. So I think he should just stick with this formation in the Premier League. We know with Tuchel, and we've seen this several times already, if 45 minutes have gone and he doesn't like something he's seen, especially against Burnley's the best example, 1-0 up, but he still made a change a little bit tactically to bring on Christian Pulisic, sort of go two up front with Pulisic and Werner with Mount in behind. We saw it against Barnsley too, making that double sub, going to a 4-3-3. He will make tactical alterations in a game if it's not working, because he's got the ability with the strength and depth he has in his squad to make alterations. I just think he'll stick with the formation that's working and getting him results at the moment. But as you can see from my team here, Edouard Mendy in goal. Yes, Kepa kept a clean sheet the other day, but I still feel Edouard Mendy is our main goalkeeper. The amount of clean sheets he's been able to keep this season, very impressive. So Mendy in goal. Back three, Dave, Christensen, Rudiger. Now, I do feel it's very harsh on Reece James. As you can see by my team, Reece James is not in this team, but I think if there was one position that I could see Reece play in this system that has been sort of touted in a back three system, especially against teams who are going to sit a little bit deeper, it would be this right centre-back role. But I feel Dave's passing from deep is quite underrated. There's been several times I look at the Tottenham game where he puts that curling pass round the corner with his right foot to Timo Werner, for instance, making that run in behind. And I feel that Dave sometimes is underrated by that aspect. And we saw how much creativity he brought to this team under Antonio Conte in a back three. So sometimes I think maybe teams leave Dave out and they don't expect him to be that good with his passing, but I actually think he can be a threat for Chelsea. But if you want Reece in this team, and the good thing about having Reece in a back three system is if you do want to alter it later on, I think it's much easier. Naturally go to that back four. You don't have to make a change, because I'd rather have Reece as a right back now than Dave. But that's just my personal opinion. Christensen, of course, starting as well. He came off for a headache. I think it was against Barnsley, wasn't it? In this type of game, once again, I want to see one thing for Christensen: keep up the strength, the physicality, the decisiveness in his play that has really impressed me against Tottenham and Sheffield United. I think the issue for him now is in a game like this where Chelsea are going to have a lot of the ball, Newcastle are going to sit very deep, a low block. Sometimes you need that creativity and guile from your centre-backs, and you expect with a back three, one of those centre-backs to have the licence to push up, whether that's Antonio Rudiger, I do think has a really good passing range on his day. Christensen needs to do that a lot more for me. It's on him him sort of as that sweeper, that central defender in a back three to come out like Thiago Silva, those switches of play, those passes in between the lines to say a free man, just to be that free man a little bit more. I don't think Christensen is offering that much from passing, and I really hope this is the game where he takes that opportunity, because as long as Thiago Silva's out, this is the best chance Christensen has to make his Chelsea career once again. Rudiger, I did think about Kurt Zouma, that threat at set pieces, but I don't think Zouma had an incredible game against Barnsley on Thursday, so I think Rudy, despite that mistake last weekend, I think made up for it, so I think Rudiger is going to be a set player here once again. Callum Wilson at right wing back, I don't think he had an incredible game on Thursday, but did look on most threatening players. If I was to look at, say, the wingers who played in that game, Christian Pulisic, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Hakim Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi was the most threatening out of the three of them, so Hudson-Odoi I think will be in this team as that right wing back once again, but with Newcastle sitting very deep, it's going to look more like a right winger as we've seen positionally for him so far under Thomas Tuchel. Georgie Cover, I don't think that double six is going to change. I think Kante really did not impress me the other night, but I also think once again the type of opposition it is, I think Jorginho, good player to have in this system. Kovacic too, breaking the lines, press resistance. I don't think he's going to have to resist a lot of pressing from Newcastle tomorrow night in my opinion, but Cover I think, and both him and Georgie have been playing quite well, so I think deserved starts. This may surprise a few. Ben Chilwell for me at left wing back. The reason I'm putting Ben in this system is I just think once again trying to unlock Timo Werner, as you can see ahead of him, and I feel that Ben offensively, I think is much better than Marcos Alonso in his build-up play. I think Marcos Alonso, just all-round, I'd rather have Ben Chilwell in this team. And Tuchel's made some comments about Ben recently that are quite interesting. And I think that Marcos Alonso, of course, starting the game on, Thursday night, Ben Chilwell didn't feature in that game at all. I'd like to see Ben Chilwell be given a chance here in the Premier League. I don't think there's tons between Marcos Alonso and Ben Chilwell. I think we're looking at that goal against Burnley for Marcos Alonso, and that's all he does, in being that final third threat, which, he scored against Newcastle last year in a very tight game that got us the winner. Absolutely, he has that threat. I'm not denying that. That's never been a problem in Marcos Alonso's game. I look at the whole package, though, with a left back, with a full back, with a wing back in this system, and I'd rather have Ben Chilwell personally. Now getting into those roaming 10s behind the central striker, Mason Mount, Timo Werner. I don't think there are any arguments. Timo Werner's involvement and influence against Sheffield United last weekend can't be underestimated. Setting up the first goal for Mason Mount and getting the penalty for the second goal, which eventually turned out to be the winner. I think all round now, Timo, I don't think he's that far away, and I know I've been saying that for a few weeks. I don't want to bore you guys, but I think if you're actually watching Timo Werner's all-round game, he's having an influence in these games. That's my issue, is if he's not having any influence, if he's shrugging his shoulders, if he's being offside, if he's really breaking down play. I'm not seeing that from Werner. He's adding something to our game, and you're seeing the influence in the final third. He just needs one goal, I think, and he'll be very close to getting back on top in terms of Chelsea goal scoring. But I think for him now, it's just about having that confidence, feeling comfortable in this system, which I think this role was sort of a closer to, say, the central striker than sort of being a left winger, because he's not a left winger. I think this sort of inside number 10 role on the left sort of really, I think, helps and elevates his game a little bit more, playing off a focal point, making those runs in behind. And he probably should have scored against Newcastle. If you remember, the start of this sort of barren run in the Premier League started against Newcastle away from home. So there'd be nice symmetry if he ends it at home to Newcastle tomorrow night and gets that goal. Mason Mount, we know, when you don't have Mason Mount in this team, the energy levels, just the performance and the quality of our performance goes down. So Mason absolutely got that full rest finally. And finally up front, Tammy Abraham. I think Tammy deserves to be the focal striker in this game for me after scoring the winner against Barnsley. I think had an all-round great performance the other night and really was impactful in what was a pretty forgettable night for Chelsea. But let's take a look at Tammy Abraham so far this season. 28 appearances, 12 goals, which makes him Chelsea's top goal scorer so far this season. He's on course to be Chelsea's top goal scorer 2 seasons in a row. And there's so much said about Tammy Abraham, whether he's good enough to lead the line for Chelsea. I mean, in terms of transfer-wise, I think it's pretty clear Chelsea once again will be going out and trying to sign a big striker, right? But I don't feel that should discount Tammy's work consistently in this team. He's never been the main striker, but still to get that amount of goals this season, I think is very impressive. I think the mentality of Tammy Abraham, the work rate, the enthusiasm, having those knockbacks and not always being trusted as the main striker, but coming back from that and scoring important goals for us, I think he deserves a start. He scored against Newcastle last time in the Premier League, and we're thinking about that Timo Werner, Tammy Abraham connection. I mean, I think Tammy Abraham with 12 goals, 6 assists, I think has been really impressive, and he's still such a young player. I see so many people writing this player off, right? And I can't tell you he's going to be a world-class striker for Chelsea in the future. I can't guarantee that. out with any player. But what I can say for Tammy Abraham, when I compare his numbers to other top Chelsea strikers in the past, given his age, and his age I think is everything here because he's still got such a long way to go in his career. He's not in his prime yet. I think it's so impressive, and I think people need to give Tammy Abraham more credit. So I think for me, over Olivier Giroud, who I don't think impressed against Sheffield United last weekend, I think Tammy Abraham will be starting tomorrow night, and I think should start as the main striker. But that is my predicted lineup. Let me know yours in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.